Welcome to the show that explores the methods and strategies on rocking the financial side of your music business. With over 40 years combined experience, here are your hosts, Chris Webb and Dave Tampkin.
Welcome to Musician's Tip Jar, where we talk about musicians and money. We want to help give you all the resources to fund your goals. I'm Chris Webb, joined by my co-host and the best resource for raising your mood, Dave Tampkin.
Thanks, Chris Webb. Thanks for having me today. Appreciate it. Really looking for a fun episode. Our friend Megan.
Calm down, please. Today we chat with Denver music scene icon Megan Burtt and her recent success in her Kickstarter campaign. And we also break down strategies, best practices, and the correct order in which you need to take to make sure that you get what you need if you do a crowdfunding.
You sound very cheery today. Not that you normally don't, but today there's that extra spark, that spark. You're glowing a little.
Well, I listened back to the 100th episode, which was really enjoyable, and I don't usually listen back to my own episodes, but I noticed that sometimes I'm just a little monotone, and, that's why I mentioned that sometimes you have more animation in yours. Your mood-enhancing delivery, it was a little infectious, and I thought, I need to do better. So here I am.
We'll find that mood uplifting tone I have could also be annoying, as Megan puts in this episode. We'll see if we can make it through it.
Today's quote comes from Megan Burtt herself. It's more of a reminder and perhaps even a mantra more than it is a quote. When she said, "People will support you if you ask."
Well, I asked Megan if there was a nonprofit that she wanted us to talk about, and she said definitely musiccares.org. Music Cares provides a safety net for critical health and welfare services to the music community in three key areas: mental health and addiction recovery services, health services, and human services. Support for basic living expenses like rent, utilities, car payments. So if you want to learn more about musiccares.org, go to musiccares.org.
That should be easy to remember. Megan Burtt is a notable singer-songwriter with a series of accomplishments in the music industry. She graduated from Boston Berklee College of Music in 2008 and has since established herself with a blend of Americana, roots, and pop influences. Her career highlights include winning prestigious awards like the Caraville New Folk, the Rocky Mountain Folk Festival, and the Westward Music Award. Besides her studio albums, Burtt has made significant live performances, including live at Red Rocks Amphitheater with the Colorado Symphony Orchestra. She toured extensively in the U.S. and Europe, shared stages with artists like Chris Isaak and Leanne Rimes and Mark Cohen. Her involvement in music has also extended to her philanthropic efforts, notably performing in Pennsylvania's state maximum security prisons. She has so much experience in the music business and yet is so humble and open with sharing. Let's dive in so that you can start planning the funding of your next album. Get that notepad ready.
Today we have the talented, the intelligent, the beautiful Megan Burtt. Thanks for joining us, Megan.
Thanks for
I talk over you a lot in this. What?
Perfect. Just feels like a normal hang. Hi, friends.
We'll be editing that last part out when you just told everyone I talk over you during a normal hang. That'll be deleted.
We're super excited to have you on. Obviously, we've been close friends for quite some time now, all three of us. But also we all do very different things in the music industry, which is kind of fun because we always say that everybody that works in the industry, even if you aren't directly connected, you're all helping each other out, in different ways. And so I think I would like to start with your early years being a Denverite, right? All of the ways that you kind of led yourself towards becoming a full-time musician.
Trying to ask me to remember how much you've helped me in the past.
Yes. Start with a list of all the things that I've done for you, and then go towards the things that you really did.
I am from Denver. I went to college in Boston, and then I ended up coming back to Colorado and sort of, took a couple stabs at leaving Colorado. But I really ended up being here to cut my teeth, for sometimes I feel like choice or not choice. Of course, it was a choice, but, I'd sort of just chased the gigs and said yes to the gigs, and the ones that felt the most fruitful were always here. So I've been a Colorado-based musician for, 15 years or something, with a lot of leaving and a lot of traveling and stuff, but, primarily making my income with performance.
When you say fruitful, do you also mean like outside of income? Coming back to Colorado, feel like home?
Yeah, I feel like there has been something to both gigs here that pay enough to, make a living doing it. And also there's something about maybe being a bigger fish in a smaller pond, and that opportunities come. Not to say that I'm like a huge fish here, but I think that not being in Nashville or LA or New York or even maybe like Chicago, I don't know, some of those bigger towns where there's just more people doing it.
Something that comes up a lot is about location and how important it is to live in the right place that's doing the thing that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you spent that time in Boston, and then I know over the years you've not only kind of lived in multiple places in a way. I don't know if you would consider it living there, but you spent a lot of time living in New York and in Nashville and Denver, right? And tell me a little bit about how that functioned for you.
I mean, it was a wild time. I was very impressed with myself. I don't know how sustainable it would have been. It bumped into the pandemic, so it all kind of crumbled. Like I do wonder if I would have been able to maintain it long term.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a time where I had a place in Denver, a place in Brooklyn, and a place in Nashville. And it makes me sound like I'm rich, but I'm not. I'm just really crafty.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of roommates in every place, and I just sort of made it a way for myself to have a place to be in all of those places. There was an element of spreading myself thin a bit. I was trying to build in New York and Nashville, and then my money gigs were in Colorado. So it was like coming back here to make money and then hustling in those other places. But I made it work for a couple of years. It's pretty cool. It was fun.
It's interesting that you say that you had to come back here to Denver to make the money gigs. Was that because you were mostly looking for gigs to further your original music when you were in Nashville and in New York, whereas here it's, this is your home base, so it was more about like, what else can I do to earn money?
It's not that cut and dry, the where you live conversation is so nuanced because it depends what you want out of it. I was just in LA over the week and went to a mixer, and there were so many people that are doing like really high level stuff, and it was really cool. And it was like, of course that happens in LA. Like when I go to a mixer in Colorado, I'm not surrounded by everyone there who I'm so impressed by and like really want to be like, leak your secrets, dude. You know what I mean? I do think that being in a town where there is a lot of competition can be really great because everyone really rises to a level. Whereas when you're in a town that doesn't have as much competition, I think people can survive without needing to push themselves to greatness. That's like sounds so dramatic, but like take the drama out, and I think that the principle still applies. So I am really interested in high level stuff and like being the best musician I am, and like getting in rooms that are getting opportunities that feel bigger than Colorado. So I have to leave. It feels to me like I have to leave to do that. But I have been able to make a living performing here too. So It's a double-edged sword, I guess. I wish that there was more industry here to satisfy that itch, but
with playing in Colorado and diversifying your gigs, I know, myself and Chris, we all play this kind of circuit in Colorado. How do you diversify that when you're advertising? Because
I never advertise a gig that I don't have to sell tickets to, ever.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing for musicians that are starting out to wrap their head around. They want to promote every place they're playing. And sometimes I even run into musicians now that still put on their website every single gig they're playing, regardless if you have to sell a ticket or not.
I hope that, venues aren't watching this podcast because I'll probably get blacklisted, but you're sort of outing yourself at the level of musician that you are too. Because if I look on someone else's calendar and I see that they have a 2.5 hour gig or a 3 hour gig on their calendar, I'm like, oh, I know what kind of musician you are and what level you're at. And the truth is that I'm playing those gigs too, but I'm not going to tell the world that I'm doing them. I want people to think of me and think of like, oh, she plays at theaters and 200-seat rooms and 500-seat rooms. And like, just on like an energetic level, the way people perceive you is important. And so no judgment, like we are all hustling and we all have to make a living. And like, that has to happen however it's going to happen. But smoke and mirrors is real. And I'm very willing to play that game.
Yeah, who do you think it is that has to be presented the most importantly for? Is it the audience or is it the industry?
It's everything. That's what I mean, like on an energetic level. Like I want you guys to think like you're my friends and you know the kind of shit that I do. And I still want you to think of me as not being the artist that plays the 3 hour cover gig.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like you booked me for those gigs, but I still want in your mind for you to think Megan Burtt plays at the Bluebird.
Yeah, we hear this a lot, and I feel it too. Like I do the same thing where I don't post, very many of my shows anywhere. But I sometimes think it's because I want to think that I'm doing better in the way that I saw myself in my early years in my career becoming. Like, and I'm not trying to get into like a therapy session, but I do think that the way that I saw myself younger was much more, big stage, famous kind of, that's what we all started, right? I mean, I don't think there's any musician who's like, someday I want to play in the corner of a room where people half listen to me, even though they requested me to learn these songs 1 week ahead of time. You know what I mean? It's not like that ever is the origin to becoming an artist, but I am at peace in some ways, and I do get satisfaction out of moments in my life as a performer,
Mm-hmm.
But I still feel that way too. I know exactly what you're saying, that I feel like there's still that stage that I want to keep myself on in the image of myself as an artist.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, to me, any gig that's not that, to me, is a day job. Like I consider my gigs that don't do that my day job.
Sure.
They just my day job also happens to be music.
Yes, which is great.
Now, does that change per venue and location? I know one thing we just qualified it as like a 2 or 3 hour gig. I'm also saying this just to voice what I do out loud and maybe get your perspectives on it. But I don't get to play too much with Brad and Chad as a trio. So when I go back to Boulder, I like to announce that I'm playing St. Julian. What made me want to do that was seeing other bands like fill that whole courtyard in the backyard and thinking, oh, one day I hope that we could provide so much fun for all these people. But then also on the other end of it, it doesn't meet that criteria that we were just talking about it. But selfishly, I have to say that I want people to show up to that because I feel like the music that comes out is something that I'm proud of and want to share.
Artists get to define their goals and artists get to define what feels like success to them. That is a very personal definition. And if that for you feels like success, then hell yeah, put that on your calendar. Get people to come.
I don't think I'd do that if I was playing all the time in Boulder, though. I would use that venue. Or maybe use that tactic when I'm trying somewhere new. Like, how did you do it in New York and Nashville when you wanted to start building there?
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like outside of hometown, maybe more of a place to be a little bit more vocal about your gigs because you want people to come. So there's definitely something to be said for that. I think I probably would be a little more loose about the promotion in an outside town where I don't have as much following.
This kind of transitions well into my next question, which is what you think the state of the music business kind of is right now in your eyes. And I know that's a massive question, but I guess I mean more specifically in the goals that you still currently have. How well is the industry set up to help you get there?
I think I'm very much in the middle of that, and we probably should have done this podcast in like 6 months because I'm in the middle of an album release. I have 1 single released. I have 4 more to go. I have a full album coming out. I've hired a digital marketing team. I'm very much doing the like artist rollout promo thing, and I have not spent the kind of money that I'm currently spending on ads and PR, essentially marketing, in a long, long, long time. So I'm getting that question answered as I go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful, but I'm also even just a month in it, it's like, oh God, wow, this is hard. The industry is not set up well for me to succeed.
Yeah.
Meg, can you give some examples of the way you're not set up for success or the way it's presenting that way?
I don't want to come at it from a like, there are so many artists all trying to do the same thing, because I think a rising tide lifts all boats and we have to help each other. And that like everyone who wants to give it a go in music gets to do that, and that there are billions of people in the world and enough ears to hear music. It does kind of feel like media input has just changed. Like people like to listen to podcasts. Way to go, you two. Like in the car for an hour, it used to be that everyone was going to turn on the radio. And now a lot of people are going to listen to an audiobook or a podcast. And I just think that the options of media have changed and that maybe there just aren't as many listeners for the amount of musicians that there are. Like, I don't know, but that feels like something. It feels like we're trying to convince an audience that getting invested in a song and listening to it over and over again and not just consuming it on social media. And, it was really interesting. Like you have to sort of give snippets of your songs on social media to tease it. But then what it takes for people to actually then go to Spotify and stream it, I think it's not set up well because of how media is consumed and how quickly people are like, got it. I heard 20 seconds. I like it. Way to go. Good job.
Well, something I think you do a very good job at is on social media and even in your emails. It is so personal and you're talking to each and every individual that you start to have the bond with the artist in ways that I don't see too many other musicians doing. So it is a treat to get your newsletters and to see you turn to the camera and talk right into it and say, hey, this is what I have going on. And it comes across in a very humble and passionate way for you to reach your fans to show, hey, this is my creativity and come along on this ride. So
thanks, Dave. Thanks for saying that. That's actually really helpful feedback.
I know you were just out in, was it Florida, where this one was, that this film and TV industry?
It was in Ventura.
It was in Ventura. How did it go? Pitching your music to film and TV.
It went well. It was interesting. It was educational. It was humbling. I have some leads to follow up with if I am good about my follow-up. I may be able to follow some cheese there. It really does feel like a long game with that kind of thing. It's a whole other lane. Like the sync thing is just a whole other lane. And so I'm exploring my place in that because I recognize the success that comes from picking that as your lane and focusing 100% on that versus like me doing 1,000 million different things and then like hoping that I can get some sync as well. Adding that to the pie. And because of that, because sync isn't my full-time lane, like what I am pitching is my artist thing. So I think success in that is because someone is going to become a fan of what I do and want to champion me versus like me saying, I'm here for you. What do you need? Let me deliver it to you. Like, let me make it easy for you. Let me give you a song that you need. I'm a Swiss Army knife. Like, I'm not a Swiss Army knife. Like, I have a lane and I have to find that right puzzle piece at the right time. And so it's just an interesting to dip my toe in and engage in, because the Swiss Army knives are invaluable to that community, and they make a lot. They can make a lot of money and have a career and make the success and the income they need just from being able to do that. So
yeah. I'm just gonna be devil's advocate here about that, what you just said, because the Swiss Army knife is that is the greatest metaphor ever. But the thought is almost that you're the Swiss Army knife. The rest of them are the one switch. Their switch is all in the sync world, whereas what you're doing is much more diversified. It's just that one section of your Swiss Army knife, you're trying to cut through with the little mini scissors, and they've got the bigger ones.
Yeah, it depends how you want to spin that metaphor. I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, you are the type of person that I gravitate towards when I'm at those places like Durango, because I like artists that have a sound. I think that they know more what to do with someone like you than the jack of all trades of, sync music.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll
see.
Find out. I pitched my music to 35 supervisors in 2 days. So
yeah. Well, I'm sure it's really hard to get in front of all those people and show them new music that's not even released yet, but also probably very exciting to have something to bring that's so fresh. Can we talk a little bit about the Kickstarter? We get a lot of questions about Kickstarter, and it's something everyone is interested in that's trying to make a new album that's just getting started, because it seems so appealing to have it funded before you even started. But one of the things I kind of want to demystify is the fact that most people don't do it that way. Like, the Kickstarter doesn't start before the recording starts.
Well, I will tell you that I did not a Kickstarter, a pledge campaign before they went bankrupt. I did a pledge 13 years ago, I think, and I did do that campaign to fund the record. And I had $0 left over to market it. And that was a huge lesson for me. Marketing money is real. And so this Kickstarter 100% is funding the post-recording of the record. I didn't lie about that in my Kickstarter, but I wasn't overt about it. I just didn't mention it, because I didn't want to have to explain for people who are like, you already made a record, why am I giving you money? I didn't even want to have to go into that. And Kickstarter is so much about like rallying your community around you. And I created a story. I said in my video, I made a record and now I need your help putting it out. But for me, that's a really important way to do it, is to figure out how to make a record with my own funds and then figure out how to put it out with some help.
Yeah. So how did you decide how much you needed to set your goal for?
It was a little bit about a budget and a little bit about perception, and a little bit about what it seems like people do. It's kind of back to that perception thing. Like, I really think that's real. And I saw a lot of my community was doing a Kickstarter for around, their goal was at least $20,000. Again, this is coming from like my space, so take it for whatever it's worth. But for me, that $20,000 mark says, I'm serious. I'm a real artist. Records cost money. We're educating our communities about how much money it costs. And I think when I see Kickstarters for less than $20,000, I'm like, either you're not taking yourself seriously, or you haven't done the math well, or you're kidding yourself, or like you're creating a lot of work for yourself for not a lot of payoff. So I knew I was going to do at least $20,000. And then I was like, I really need 25, because Kickstarter is going to take a percentage and shipping is going to be a huge chunk. And then I was like, and then I did my pie in the sky budget. Pie in the sky. Like, if I had the marketing budget I could have, or not even marketing, but just like the vinyl, shipping, art, merch, art design, PR, digital marketing, Facebook ads, Submit Hub, playlist pushing, radio, the whole thing. And it was like $65,000.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm going to ask for 30.
Yeah.
I felt like I had gotten 20 on my first one a decade ago. And it was like, if I can't make another $10 $10,000 in a decade of pounding the pavement, like not doing something right. So I picked 30 and then I ended up with a little over 41.
Which is so fun.
Nice
Fantastic.
job.
And that money is gone. Like that money was gone when I clicked publish that Kickstarter, because I'm going to spend a couple grand in shipping. I'm going to spend $8,000 in vinyl. I'm going to spend, I have a huge digital marketing budget and I'm spending so much money in ads right now. Holy God. And all these things. So
it's awesome to watch you understand the number one thing you didn't want to do was play small when your goals were so big, right? Like you really seem so self-aware of what it's really going to take. So what were some ways that you were able to keep people engaged in the campaign? I know the answer to this, but I just want people to hear some of them, because that was the most amusing part about watching the Kickstarter process with you.
Well, I'm actually curious what you're going to say, because we might have different answers, but okay. So here's a little behind the scenes thing. Were you watching my really silly social media about if my music was a nut and stuff?
Yes.
So that was my initial Kickstarter video. I had recorded that whole thing that I had cut up for social media posts in a 4-minute Kickstarter video. And a friend said, I don't think you should make this your video. I think you're trying to be funny and you need to be sincere. You need to tell a story that's going to pull at some heartstrings. And that honestly was really hard feedback, because I thought I think I'm funny. And it took, it's getting up for making that content is no small thing. And I had booked a whole day and done all the editing, and it was wah, wah, wah. So I ended up finally redoing my video, which was my Kickstarter video. But here's another money tip for everyone. Create your social media content when you do your Kickstarter video. Just spend the day doing that. Change your clothes. You already put eyeliner on. You're already in that headspace. Just make all that content. That was so helpful. That was a big part of it. I also had this spreadsheet that I made that was my Bible for 2 months. And I put all of my Patreons on it, everyone who had donated to my first Kickstarter or pledge music. And then people who had hosted me for house concerts in the last decade, people who I knew were fans, people who comment a lot on my social media posts, who are really engaged in that way. And I ended up making a 3-tier system, and there were 700 contacts on that spreadsheet. And I picked 50 that I was positive that they would donate something and probably donate at a higher level. And I emailed them 3 days before my campaign launched. And I said, this is launching in 3 days. And I sent a love letter, a personal letter. Each email took me a half an hour. And I sent those initial emails out and said, if you're in a place to donate to this campaign, will you do it in the first 24 hours? And when you were seeing that social media post that I had made $15,000 in 48 hours, it was because I sent those emails.
Wow.
And then I had another tier of people that I sent a little bit more of a blast email to. There were 300 people on that email. You two may have been on it. That were friends, closer friends. Anyway, it was just a lot of spreadsheeting and really strategic asking. I hit my goal. I hit 30,000 a week before. And half of me thought, awesome. Great, I hit my goal. Let me stop asking for money, because it's uncomfortable. I'm not someone who's good at this, I don't enjoy the vulnerability attached to a Kickstarter campaign. It makes me want to die, quite honestly. So I spent a day in that space of cool, I made it. And then I was you know what? I'm not going to do another Kickstarter for a long time. Let me just see what I can do. At that point, I had under 300 backers, and I really wanted 400 backers. That was the number in my goal. It wasn't really about the money at that point. It was about the community that I wanted to know I had a record coming out. And I didn't care if they each gave me $1. I just wanted to get to 400.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started messaging people, and so many people hadn't seen my post or were like, thank you so much for reminding me. And you sit here and you feel like shouting it from the rooftops, and you're so annoying, and you're like, give me money, give me money, give me money. But it never comes across like that. And all those people, I ended up, I think at 411 was my final number. And even after that, I had good friends. Like I had an aunt who was like, 2 weeks later was like, so sorry, I missed your Kickstarter. Can I still donate? Like people aren't paying that close of attention. And so it really does require the ask. And that was my biggest lesson, is that people will support you if you ask. And it's so uncomfortable because I'm the person who wants to sit back and be invited into my life. And with a Kickstarter, especially, like, if me as the asker of the Kickstarter, like, does it, like, if I come my 50%, almost everyone that I asked gave. And that was such a lesson and a reminder. And like, I have to be willing to ask, and then people will show up. But how, if your friend was like, hey, I'm doing something, I'm really excited about it, like it requires you to drop off a bag of chocolate on my doorstep, would you be willing? You'd be like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Of course I would.
Right.
That's what I can tell you about Kickstarter.
With, asking all these friends and family and fans, did you have anyone ever ask for money back when they found out that maybe a song wasn't going to be on the next album?
Only
If they donated to the Kickstarter and
really obnoxious person asked for a refund. Yeah.
Word obnoxious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just one. There's always one,
What was his last name? Tamkin?
Chris, she's got a great song, Back of Wild Horses. Back of Wild Horses, Chris. I found out I wasn't going to be on there, and I said, I accept refunds. Want to send me my Kickstarter money back? Maybe we can go out to lunch on that. We'll get some sushi. But not this album, Megan. Not this album. I didn't get it back, though, because now we found out that it was all gone. So that's another reason why you should shoot high, in case people ask for money back.
There were a handful of people, you get some funny comments and you're like, oh God, okay. I had this one guy that I would consider like a friend, like a peer friend. I've like seen him quite a few times. He lives in the UK. He was like really complimentary of what I do, like I seemed like a fan. So I had him on my sort of tier 2 list of emails. And he just wrote back and was like, please take me off this list. Like as if it was like a subscribe thing. I'm like, I'm too sensitive for this. Good.
Yeah, right. That's hilarious. All right, folks. Well, there's the first part of an incredible interview. I had so much fun talking with her. Hearing her backstory and where her career started, she's just a driving force, And when she decided to go to Boston, obviously she always knows where she can go to get the best of what she needs, That's one of her talents. And we see that over and over again with the musicians she picks to play with, and the way that she produces things, and the people she works with, and the friends that she chooses. Obviously, she's got really high standards.
I agree.
And, she brushed over the fact that she went to Berkeley, but, most artists that go there don't even finish. So there's something just about the fact that she finished.
Absolutely. I liked her story about coming back to Denver, and she said she was saying yes a lot to gigs. And although more lucrative here in Colorado, where she was more well-known, she was just going after it, whatever she needed to do, like you said. And she was crafty by doing it. Wherever she needed to go, she made it work, regardless of how much money she was making at the time.
That's one of those things where we bring this up often, talking about location. We talk about, because we all have this thing. And I think that COVID really emphasized the reality that maybe we don't need to stay in the place that we don't really want to. And, a lot of people with regular jobs can work remotely very easily now, as long as their company allows it. Whereas for us, it was always like, do I need to move to those major cities? Do I have to? Because a lot of people don't want to live in those major cities. It can be very expensive to live there, but there's also family factors and just quality of life, So this was a new approach. This, it's amazing. Like, you think we've heard everybody's version, but here we go again with Megan's approach, which is, I'll have a place in each, in New York, a place in Nashville, and a place here in Denver, and all for different purposes, all for different needs that she has, right? That's a new one that we haven't heard yet. I like the idea of living in multiple cities, personally. I think that there's a lot of excitement and adventure to that too. Obviously she said it was crazy and it was hard. And that's the reality of doing anything great, right? But we started this talking about how she knows how to pick the right places she needs to go to get what she needs. And this was a solution in order to do that. And keeping herself in Denver, even though her family's here, I don't know if she ever mentioned that was the reason she was coming back. Sure, it's part of it. But the other part is that Denver really does have a strong working music community. Like, there is a lot of opportunity here to make decent money.
Absolutely. So much so that even after moving from there, I've already been back, I don't know, 3 times in the last 4 months. And I think when you get to a place, not only in your career, but your life, and you find people that you want to be around and you want to play music with, you stick with them. And even like you and I talking and starting this during COVID when we couldn't hang out together, now we're 1,000 miles apart and we're still doing it and still making it work. And same with, say, Brad Huffman, who I get to go back and play guitar with, and he's flying out here. So I think Megan found that out a lot earlier, or at least was able to experience that a lot earlier than other musicians who maybe felt they had to stay in one place.
Yeah, like she was ahead of that curve, right? She was doing that way before COVID. So yeah. And she said something that stuck with me. She said the where you live conversation is so nuanced because it depends on what you want out of it. And that's really where we should start the conversation for most people when they ask that question. And it's, what do you want? And that's always what we're saying, is, right? Do you know what you want? She always does this thing where she always makes me say too much. And there's certain people, like, there's a vibration connection where it's like, you interact with different people differently. And she doesn't do it intentionally, but she always just makes me start to share maybe stuff that's like oversharing. And so I just wanted to say that when I talked about playing in the corner of a room where people are half listening, I realized that can sound like I'm not grateful for what I do, but it was more just that I was emphasizing the fact that when you're starting out, that's not what you imagine you're going to be doing. But I am not saying that I don't enjoy doing what I do. I love doing what I do. I played a 6-hour show last night. 6 hours.
Why do they keep getting longer, Chris? Do to get a therapist. You're ruining it for other musicians.
It's honestly, it puts me in a niche. Not many people can do that, or are not willing to do that. And I didn't repeat a single song, And so I can set a very high rate because of that. And so I'm very grateful for what I get to do.
You didn't want to come across that you weren't grateful for being able to take those gigs, but as you're looking at different cities and doing this for a living, you might find yourself in those situations, and it might not be what you thought it was going to be, but still a great opportunity and a great way to earn a living too, if you enjoy doing 6-hour gigs or 4 or 3.
There's no wrong way to do any of this. And that's really important that we remember as we start out and as we progress, that we can be resistant because it didn't fit that image that perhaps was when we were 15, and it's really important that you mature along with the journey.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means that you're doing things that we've talked about before that you didn't expect yourself to do, and you might actually find that you enjoy them.
I remember playing a show with Guster. And afterwards, the next day, I had a gig at an Italian restaurant in the corner. And I was like, I am not doing this anymore. Finally got on, a bigger stage. And then when I moved to Colorado and I had no gigs, I thought I'd give anything for an Italian restaurant.
Yeah. Your perspective.
And how cool did I think I was at the time, where I could have enjoyed both of those equally for different reasons. And instead, ego gets in the way and you think you're too cool for school. Is that even a saying? Too cool for school?
Yeah, I think so. You still are, Dave.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to address was oversaturating your city when you start advertising all those gigs. And I think Megan really put her perspective straight to say, hey, this is the musician I want to present myself as, and these are the gigs that I want to represent me. And I might take all these gigs like we were just talking about, and not saying that she's playing in the corner of a pizza place, but not to say maybe she would, but she's not going to let all her fans know that. And it's important not only for the reason of your brand, but also oversaturating your market. You can't tell everyone to come to 5 gigs a month. You need to pick one and bring all your friends and family and pay people to make an impression on a venue to keep coming back and build that. And she said, I hope no one, none of the venues that she plays, that she doesn't advertise, listen to this. But that's even more reason why to have her, because it's something unique.
Totally. Well, and I make sure that when I'm booking musicians at these residency gigs, that the host, knows that they're not going to be advertising. Like that's part of the expectation. So it's pretty above board.
But also, you're in the industry. You're different in that way and unique, where you get to have that real conversation, where some promoters might not do that.
Yeah. Along with the image thing too, it does really matter. But we wanted to touch on just who does it matter most for, and it's about building a brand, right? Building a brand that you want can allow you to grow. That's the goal, right? To get to that thing that you should know what it is that you want ultimately as an artist. It's funny because I remembered when I started playing these residency gigs, I felt like I wanted to keep my calendar looking full on my website. So I started posting them, but I put private event. But then a friend who was an A&R rep out in LA he emailed me and he was like, would you stop putting these on your website? He's like, if we can't come to them, why are you even telling us about it? So I don't know if there's a right answer. He had a point that it was like everyone's seeing them on my posts, but then they're all private events. So it's like, am I just trying to feel busy or make everyone know that I'm still playing lots of music? And then who is that for, right? So there's a lot to consider there, but it's just important that you feel like you're targeting in the right direction.
On the marketing end of things, say his point is you're putting too many of them. I would think if you put one a month on that, it's great advertising too, because it shows everyone you're available for private events.
That's true.
So it's like finding a middle ground. And how you said there's no right way to do this. Say all you want to do is residencies. There's a way to do that too. If that's all you ever want to do is fills your day with joy to go play this specific show, there's a way to advertise that too, where it's not oversaturating everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just finding your niche in marketing and branding as well.
And knowing those things really does make a difference when you start a Kickstarter. She really did a great job of building all of the plan before she executed it. And that, again, shows her ability to really dive in. And she's not afraid of hard work. So many people would give up on their Kickstarter, not because it's not working, but because it's too much work. That's a lot that you have to do that doesn't feel very musical. It doesn't feel very artistic. But it is such an important, critical part of building a successful fundraiser campaign.
One thing that I thought could be misconstrued was when she started talking about how much she was going to ask for, that she was also looking at what her peers were asking for and wanted to be up in that $20,000, $25,000 range. But she clearly stated afterwards that money's gone already. So I think it's becoming comfortable with having to ask for that much is where you're going to be successful. Yep. Not because of just what your peers are doing, but it does take a lot of money to do everything that she is doing.
Right.
You're only feeling like 10,000 is comfortable for you, but you have to ask for what you need to complete that project. Otherwise, you're not setting yourself up for success.
We're also educating the community to realize how much this stuff does actually cost if you want it to be very effective, right? I mean, what do you want out of the album? The reality is it's a lot more expensive to do those things and successfully do those things than people realize. And even though 25 grand sounds like a lot, and I'm sure a lot of people are hearing this and say, yeah, that's a ton of money. If you're going to really promote an album and do it yourself, that money goes quick.
Sido was even saying that he had to ask for this Kickstarter that he just completed recently and fully funded. Congratulations to him. That he didn't want that album to live in a vacuum either. And he needs that much just to market it.
Right.
So there's two sides. You know, you get done with one project making the art, and then you have to get it into the ears of everybody.
Yes. Well, and I don't want any of this to make anyone discouraged to run a campaign. I encourage everyone, even if you're not at the level of where Andy Sido is or where Megan Burtt is, that you are still willing to give it a shot and do what you think you need to do. Because, I mean, even Megan said she did another fundraiser a decade ago, you know, and she's learned a lot since then, and she's raised the bar. And that's how this works, is you just go try to fail. It's okay, you know? And obviously you will get a lot out of what you raise funds for. You will learn a lot. You will gain fans. You will, like she said, she just wanted to get more of a community of people that even gave $1 just because it builds community. And that's really important. And then being willing to ask and reach out to these people. I loved how she had the tiers of different donors that she expected what they would be willing to contribute. And you think about it, if you ever really thought about your fan base in tiers like that.
Are you saying they're crying because of the giver?
just me over here.
Gears and beers.
That sounds like most of my shows. But yeah, it was really fun to talk to her fresh off a successful Kickstarter, and the way that she approached it, you know, and getting all of those campaign strategies to a point where it was clear and that she was just relentless at that point, you know. And she talked about making all of her content at the very beginning. This is a very important one. If you're thinking about this stuff right now, do not try to do it along the way. Try to come up with a cohesive plan and execute most of your recordings and all of your promotional videos at the very beginning, so that you're just putting them in the right places, and it all will work out a lot better.
And get feedback from your friends and the people that you look up to, because she was surprised by some feedback that she got, and she went back and did up even more videos.
Yep, it's a lot of work. Again, like that, you can't be afraid of hard work if you're going to raise $40,000, right? It's your expectation that you got to give a lot of energy should be there.
And how many people work for a whole year to make $40,000?
Totally. Well, so our one action step for you this week is to rethink your approach for your Kickstarter using some of these tips that Megan gave us. You may not actually be planning one yet, but maybe this will be a great place for you to start, or perhaps you're about to launch one, which this is a really good spot for you then to stop for a moment and look through what Megan just gave you. So here's just a couple things to keep in mind. Keep the number high enough to cover your realistic costs, and then some unexpected variables. I liked how she went through and even had that one, the dream number, you know, and there was the different tiers, even for what she wanted to raise. Create your support list and group them into those tiers of what you think each person would likely support you with. This is tedious work, but a very strategic way to make sure that you get more out of this. And finally, design the content that will keep your momentum going through the finish line. And as Megan said, we recommend that you do that all in 1 or 2 days at the very beginning before this is launched. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending this time with us and being a part of this community. It's our hope that you feel that sense of community here at Musicians Tip Jar, and you help spread the word to make us all stronger. If you'd like to get a hold of us, what's the best way to do that?
Send us an email at musicianstipjar@gmail.com and check out our website, musicianstipjar.com, and check out all our resources and discounts that we have for you special listeners, and pick up your free budget and financial forecasting tool.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like. We're just getting started there, and any support is greatly appreciated. As always, thank you for joining us. Remember, there is already enough for everyone. You just need to know how to get it. Until next time, on behalf of Dave Tamkin and myself, stay happy, healthy, and wealthy. Your crowd is waiting for the opportunity to fund you. Give it to them, and they will give you what you need. This is Musician's Tip Jar.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, business, or financial professional for individualized advice. Individual results are not guaranteed, and all discussed strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The hosts are operating on behalf of Musicians Tip Jar LLC exclusively.
Could use a little help, could use some help.